Story 1. My uncle had a wife and child in Korea. When he was reassigned to Utah, he left his family in Korea and then met someone new in Utah. He converted, became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, married her, and had a large, blonde, perfect family. I don't think any of them know about his other child. My grandmother told me about it when we found a picture of them while going through her photo album. She said he told her to throw the picture out, but she refused because it was still her grandchild, even if she was never going to get to see him. Story 2. Autism runs in my family on my father's side. I am diagnosed. Dad has no idea he likely has it, but everyone in the extended friend group suspects it. My 100-year-old great-uncle knew and confided in me before he died. My aunties have always commented on how similar I am in nature to my Nana, my father's mother. Sadly, she committed suicide after my grandfather died. She was given shock therapy for her anxiety and other mental health issues, which apparently made things worse. She just wanted to do flower arranging. All of these secrets make me sad, but I have had to keep them because my parents are extreme conspiracy theorists who think vaccines cause autism. I fear nothing good will come from them knowing my diagnosis or possibly theirs. It is hard. Story 3. I'm pretty sure my grandfather had an affair when he served in the Navy and had a child. She reached out to my siblings on social media, but none of them responded. Story 4. My maternal grandfather has a son outside of marriage who is the same age as his youngest son by marriage. While intoxicated, he told all his children about this, and he told me, I am the oldest of his grandchildren, only 9 years younger than my two uncles in question. This happened while he was stationed away during the 1960s. He was an officer in the coastal artillery. The tragic part is that he has not told his wife, my grandmother. It would break her heart, and if she knew that all of her children know, including 4 siblings plus me, that would be a devastating betrayal. They are almost 90 years old, and we do not want them to break up now, so everybody hides it. Story 5. My dad probably cheated with my aunt, my uncle's wife, who is my mother's brother's wife. My granddad, my mom's and uncle's father, saw her leaving his car on a random day in the early 1980s and scolded them. My granddad died in 1998. My uncle and aunt divorced in the late 1990s, and my parents divorced in the early 2000s. My grandma, now 101, told my mom about 10 or 15 years ago, at least 25 years after it happened. I am pretty sure my uncle and my cousins have no idea. Story 6. My brother is married. He married his partner of 10 years overseas in a secret ceremony to assist in getting a visa. No one in my family knows. Not even he knows that I know. His partner confided in me because he is unhappy that they have not told anyone. If my mother found out, she would be heartbroken. Story 7. Nobody in my generation is supposed to know my grandfather killed a child while driving under the influence in the 1970s, just down the street from their house. Thank you to that newspaper archive. Story 8. Someone in the family has stolen a very unique, centuries-old painting by a world-renowned artist thought to be lost during one of the world wars. Story 9. Someone in our family helped the mafia with several other people. Because of that, they made one of the nieces of those people famous. They are now very famous and have been for a while. I have an autograph of them from when they were a child, as does another member of my family. Story 10. Not really a secret, but I still meet people who are surprised when I mention my stepmother is a mail-order bride. Story 11. None of them are really secrets, but my grandfather, he died 13 years before I was born, so I don't think of him as my grandpa, was a pimp, bootlegger, and involved in other organized crime activities. My dad told me a few times about riding along with his father when he most likely killed a man and dumped his body after catching the man with my dad's mother, who he had prostituted before. He was probably more upset that he wasn't getting paid for it than anything else. Story 12. When my mother-in-law died, she left a lot of money to her neighbor's children and none to her own grandchildren. My kids spent summers with her for years until the neighbors started having children. Then my in-laws did not want to host my kids anymore. My kids never knew. They told my husband not to send them because they watched the neighbors' children. This would have been very hurtful to my kids had they known because they idolized their grandparents. They were well-behaved children, so it was not because of that. I will never tell my kids what actually occurred. They never understood why our relationship with my husband's family had become superficial at best when we were originally so close up to that point. Story 13. For the longest time, I told them I graduated from college, but I did not. I got a great job and they never asked. When I became unemployed, they asked and I told them the truth. They did not hate me, but they do not love me as much. Story 14. My aunt plotted the murder of my very abusive uncle and got away with it because my grandfather was a police superintendent. I only know what was told to me. He was extremely abusive to my aunt, assaulting her physically and sexually. He also physically abused my cousin when she was just a few months old. Finally, my aunt got fed up and had him killed by some local criminals. There was an investigation and court case, but my grandfather ensured that all evidence was removed or destroyed. However, karma delivers justice, whether good or bad, in the same life. Sadly, my cousin committed suicide at the age of 40. She had been depressed since childhood. Story 15. My mother's sister had an affair and became pregnant. Her husband forgave her but said he did not want anything to do with the child. So her older brother stepped up and adopted the child as his own. She is now grown up and eventually found out the truth. She has no trust in her family and does not want to talk to any of them. Story 16. It is my own secret, but no one knows. In my university years, I largely abandoned pornography for online relationships. I would meet strangers online, sext, use webcam, and help each other. Felt more exciting and real than pornography, somehow healthier too. But it always felt nefarious, like my dirty little secret. Sex was not addressed growing up, so this was my outlet. Story 17. A pedophile and cruel child torturer forced boys to do terrible things. For example, he punished them by making them suck green ink spilled through a straw, then told them they would die because it was toxic. He abused many children. After his death, an album of illegal photographs involving different children was discovered. He was also the local family doctor for a medium-sized village in the east of England. Story 18. My dad got someone pregnant when he was a teenager, and she never told him. I have an older brother who went looking for his biological father, my dad, a few years ago. My mom was totally heartbroken, but my father refused contact. The man also refuses to be in contact with my father. He just wanted to know if he was still alive because his mother had recently passed away. Story 19. My parents went through in vitro fertilization to have me. I recently found out I have multiple brothers and sisters through ancestry testing. My dad is very likely not my biological dad, but he has no idea, and my mom is deceased, so I cannot ask her to find out what happened. I have a great relationship with one of my sisters, though, but none of the family have any idea. Story 20. When I was a kid, my dad disappeared for a few years. No one in the family would give me a straight answer. Every time I asked my mom, him, or my grandparents, I got a different story. It always felt like they were hiding something, and now I know why. Years later, I was talking with one of his old friends who let something slip. Turns out my dad was involved with the mob. Not just lightly. He served serious time on federal charges tied to organized crime before I was even born. Apparently, he was looking at decades but got out early thanks to a mix of good behavior and connections. My dad has eventually owned up to it in his own way. He got out, tried to go straight, met my mom, had me, had another baby on the way, but fell back into the life not long after. Money was tight, kids are expensive, and old habits die hard. Eventually, the federal agents got involved again. I was in my father's truck riding with him on the highway when two SUVs with lights pulled us over and took him in. I was still really young when that initially happened, about 6 or 7, but I remember that time being chaotic. We were constantly moving, staying with random family and friends, never in one place for long. After a few more years, he got out again and moved us far away. A new state, a quiet town, a normal job, a small house. It was like a reset button. But when he is in the right mood, relaxed, maybe with a drink in hand, he tells stories. And the names he drops, you can tell they were not just friends, names that sound like they came straight out of a mob movie. Story 21. My aunt had a child before all the kids in that generation were born. The child died. The story changes, but basically she left and came back and the child died. She had 3 children afterward with another man and fell into drug use. Grandma spent a lot of time and effort making everyone miserable, trying to pull her back into the family because her child went through something traumatic. Everyone was expected to tolerate whatever the aunt did because she had suffered so much. The truth that no one ever said to Grandma is that the aunt was simply a bad person. The death of a child is neither karma nor a reason to excuse lifelong poor personal choices. Story 22. It is a good thing that a particular family member feels they got married too late to have children. Story 23. Apparently, my grandmother on my mother's side became pregnant by my grandfather before they were married, and her or his parents kept her locked in a closet until she had my uncle. I have only heard this from my half-brother, and he was shocked that I was not aware of it. I am unsure if maybe his father knew from when he was married to my mother and told my brother, or if my parents and grandparents never wanted to bring it up since they like to present themselves as perfect. Story 24. My mother left my dad because of his cheating. 10 years later, her affair came out around the same time he was doing it. The man she was with is my current landlord and the person I work for part-time, so things are messy right now. Dad has a new wife, the woman he cheated with. Mom has a new boyfriend since this all came to light. My sister called me one morning to say, "You know what we thought about Mom and X growing up? Well, it's true. And Mom is getting messages left and right." Story 25. My great-uncle passed away, and everyone thought he had nothing to his name. But years later, when my cousin was renovating the old family house, he found a small locked box hidden behind a wall. Inside were war medals, old love letters, and a stack of cash. We never told anyone outside the family. Story 26. My father was unfaithful to my mother frequently. He used to take mental health trips alone to Paris and London. When I was 20, I discovered he frequented sex clubs there. My mother struggled with severe alcoholism. I never spoke about this because being alone with her would have harmed me. Both of my parents are deceased now, and no one else in my family knows except for my husband. Story 27. My maternal grandmother was a single mother until my mother was 11 years old. She found my step-grandfather and finally felt safe and secure after struggling to make ends meet for so long. They moved to another country and were able to get my mother into a good private school system. My grandmother still had to work, and one night, my step-grandfather tried to assault my mother at home when she was alone. She was able to stop it, but it made her extremely uncomfortable. She did not even want to be in the same room with him alone after that. My grandmother noticed after a while and confronted my mother, asking what happened. She told her, and my grandmother started threatening to leave him immediately. My mother said no and wanted to pretend it never happened because he gave them a better life. So, they all went on with their lives as if it never happened. When my parents got together, my father confronted him about it, and now there is constant tension. When they come to visit us, my father leaves the country and turns his phone off for weeks. I never liked my step-grandfather. I always thought he was someone who just yelled at my grandmother and hated everything in life. I am glad I have never had a close relationship with him. Story 28. Someone in our house was very sexually active, but nobody ever admitted to it. We built an addition and had to move the septic tank. During construction, workers removed a large amount of almost completely obstructive material from the pipes. They said if we had not moved the tank to discover the problem, the system would have certainly backed up into the house within the year. The material was 90% condoms, dozens of them. I was 18, my younger brother was 16, and my older brother was 21. None of us were responsible, nor were the neighbors. We are left with 2 possibilities. Either cleaning service coworkers were involved, or one of the parents was very naughty. It remains the greatest mystery of my life. Story 29. Apparently, my aunt and her mother were involved with the lodger. My cousin is his daughter. My niece is the result of my sister-in-law and my cousin having a relationship. Story 30. When my grandfather died, he had a life insurance policy that only my father knew about. He was supposed to split it with his 3 siblings but kept it for himself. Story 31. My dad, before meeting my mom, was very close 3 times to almost marrying other women, but something in life would happen and it never happened. My mom, though we are not close anymore for many reasons, was married to a British man before meeting my dad. She was in an abusive relationship. She got out of it through divorce and since then has had a very negative outlook on marriage as a whole. She also explained a lot about her drinking issues when I was a kid. I am proud she got sober, but I would have liked to see her sober when I was still a kid, not only after I finished high school. I needed a mom then, and she finally showed up when none of my siblings or I needed a mom anymore. I know I should not be bitter about it, but I still feel something about it. Story 32. I have a great-great-great-grandmother who was one of the witches executed in the Pendle witch trials. She was one of 2 who pleaded not guilty but was hanged anyway. I found this out last summer while doing a genealogical project. Story 33. I am the one who told my nephews to call my mother, their grandmother, on Mother's Day. The deception was worth it to see the smile on her face. Story 34. Not a secret anymore, but my grandfather had a secret daughter no one knew about. So now I have a new aunt that I will probably never talk to. Story 35. I was a stripper for a short period of time, freshly 18 and living on my own. Only my father and mother knew, and they were not okay with it. Luckily, I wanted to leave the industry anyway and never went back. It is very toxic and I do not recommend it. It is a secret that not even my 6 siblings know about. Story 36. Incest is common in the family. There are no underage individuals involved, only adult consenting relationships. Everyone acts like it is normal and does not talk about it. Story 37. I know that I am not my father's daughter, but I have no idea who I am. I discovered this after I became a mother by chance. My son has a rare inherited genetic disease. Genetic tests showed that I am a carrier. From there, I discovered that my blood type is incompatible with that of my parents and that no one else in my family has this genetic disease. It is something that marks your life. Story 38. My dad, who was a teacher and well-loved, had affairs throughout his marriage. He was unfulfilled because my mom was undiagnosed autistic. She and he did not know that she had sensory sensitivities, which made her unable to have close physical contact with my dad for prolonged periods. Her sensitivities did contribute to her superior musical abilities, though. It is very sad to think that if there had been more awareness about autism in the 1950s, my parents' marriage could have been much better. Fast forward in time, and my son has been diagnosed. I will always thoroughly research this to ensure he fully understands himself and receives the right kind of help he needs. Story 39. My 89-year-old father told me a couple of weeks ago that he had a romantic encounter with his brother's girlfriend, who later married his brother. They never told anyone, and my father outlived them both. I am still not sure why he confided in me. Story 40. I just found out my mother was adopted because she was the child of infidelity. Her father is also her brother. It makes me feel sick knowing that infidelity was only 1 generation away from my birth. Story 41. 30 years ago, my uncle and grandfather were on their way to visit relatives. As they left, one of them stabbed my uncle in the back. When my grandfather saw him, he stabbed the person who had stabbed my uncle. My uncle went and turned himself in to the police and claimed to be the culprit. To this day, people believe my uncle was the culprit. Story 42. I know grandma's secret ingredient. It's a large amount of butter. It's an unusual way to drink water, but to each their own. Story 43. What really happened when my grandmother and great-aunt used a Ouija board? No one will ever know because both of them are deceased. Story 44. I am probably transgender. I have been both a success and a disappointment in equal measure, so I guess it is almost time to give them another disappointment after being the only one to give them the success of grandchildren. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.